speech. May I invite you and the other two panelists, and then may I also ask Paolo, Sassone, Corsi to join us here. And we have not listened to Paolo Sassone Corsi before. He's the director of the Center for Epigenetics and Metabolism, School of Medicine, UCI. And I will ask him to start this roundtable to tell us something about his work, his experience, so that we can start the roundtable from him. Thank you, Paolo.
Thank you. So you maybe been lucky not to hear about me, but now you're forced to it. So let me first say that all I heard today has been great, very interesting, absolutely. Mostly agree with everything I heard. But let me tell you about a little bit my story very quickly. I've been away from Italy 38 years. So my life has been oscillating between France and California since the age of 22. So my link to Italy is very strong. As you can see, I'm here for a reason. But I also have to say that I've been like an outside spectator of what's going on in the country. And overall, I get to disagree with a few things that's said today. Overall, I said, we're really happy about it, but still I did get to disagree with a few things. When I was a young guy, my dad died really early. He told me something really cool. He said, always stick with the people who are better than you. Mm-hmm. It's kind of simple, probably obvious thing to say, but I totally agree. I mean, more time goes by, the more I got to agree with them. And the other thing I really gotta say that one thing really strongly affected my decisions was something that a fellow, most of you must know, Edoardo De Filippo, kind of well-known Italian author. In a famous interview about 30 or 40 years ago, he said, "Fuggita vino," means just get out, just run away. And at the time, I was really impressed by that. And then after this, I realized that wasn't really saying just run away. It basically said, go out and discover the world. Don't stay at the same place all the time. There's plenty to discover. And from those discoveries, from meeting other people, other cultures, then you enrich yourself. That's what he meant. Doesn't mean like go away and then come back. Go away, come back sometime. Now, I never did. However, I'm here and meeting with friends and colleagues. I think this is spectacular. Now, let me tell you what I don't like about the few things I said today, very quickly. And I'll tell you what we do, very quickly. Well, I heard people talking about, being self-confident because we're Italians, on one hand. On the other hand, I heard about the amazing history we have in Italian intellect being superior. They're both lies, right? Italian intellect is not superior. It's as good as the others. And we do have history just like many other countries. And we don't have to be, less confident. We should be very confident. We should be very proud of what we are. But the problem has been maybe to look too much on the back, not towards the future. So let me tell you about the future, which is what we believe somehow we're contributing to. So as Fulvia said, I'm the director of the Center for Epigenetics and Metabolism, and I'm sure most of you don't have any idea what epigenetics is, and I'm not gonna have the time to explain to you. But basically it means that everything is written on your DNA, but something that is written somehow above DNA. Take two kids, same age, perfectly homozygous, two twins. One guy, you put him playing soccer or tennis and having a nice diet, meeting a lot of friends and people. The other guy has the same DNA, put him on a couch, watching games, but eating pizza and burgers and being on his own. Trust me, after 10, 20 years, even actually less than that, they're not gonna be the same, although they have the same DNA. That's what epigenetics is. Basically is how the environment touches your DNA and your genome. Essential to understand how to develop our life and the ones of our kids. So the project that Roberto is and Human Technopole is developing is right on that line, which is nutrition, environment, and our future. Our center works in that kind of direction by applying both epigenetic analysis as well as metabolomic analysis. Very hard word, but they're actually really important. One of the projects is together with the University of Brescia and Professor Pecorelli, that has to do the first 1,000 days of the development of a baby, of a kid. That I think is really exciting because it tells us how what happens in the womb of the mother is really transmitted to the progeny. Finally, let's stop. Maybe it's like I spoke more than you guys. Ray, almost. I stop by telling you that I really believe that the only way to reach that excellence that we heard so much about today is basically one way, is to open yourself to outside world. So our center has a very strong relationship with France. That's historical. We have a very strong relationship with INSERM, the equivalent of the NIH in France. Our center holds the only research unit of INSERM outside France, okay? And I'm a professor at Max Planck in Germany, a structure that I think Italy should somehow copy. I think it's beautiful to think about the Human Technopole in Milan as a great center of excellence. But what about not having one, but having 10, 20, 30, 40? That's what we should aim to. I think I spoke enough.
Thanks, Paolo. Before we go to the other speakers, may you tell us the composition, how the principal investigators in your center are, let's say, allocated among various countries?
All right, I thought I was already boring you guys, so I'll do very quickly. So if you look at that goes back to the questions about the brain drain, la fuga dei cervelli, which again, I think is a lie. Not a lie in itself, but it's not the problem. If you look at the Department of Biological Chemistry, where I belong, at our university, which has about 15 faculties, only 2 are Americans. Mm-hmm. So then the Americans should talk about brain, drain. That's not the case. It's just that we have a lot of people coming in, and I think that is what's supposed to happen in Italy as well. It's not bringing Italians back. I mean, they should, if they're excellent, but possibly bring it back to Italy, excellent scientists from other countries as well.
Thank you. Agostino, just your experience on Cisco and life science. What do you do in that sector?
Yeah, I'll take really 30 seconds because he opened my mind on one conversation, but I will be very short, I promise you. Back on your comments on the past and the future. I had the opportunity to join a training from a professor, a Canadian professor, Gershon Mader. So his business model is fantastic. He's alone and he's able with 2 pencils and a whiteboard to train simultaneously in person 300 people. So quite profitable business, right? So he trained the entire team on the fact that a company or an organization is a network of conversation. And if you are able to clean the background conversation, you release new energy in the organization. And the way to make it happen is to bring your organization in the future. So instead, looking at your past experience and driving because of your past experience in the future, say, write what you want to do in 5 years or in 3 years from now as a breaking news in Corriere della Sera. The way you want to see you written in Corriere della Sera in 3 years, and then from that point, go back. So if you take this concept, if you apply to Italy, I believe there is an opportunity. That's as a point. Healthcare and Cisco. If it's true that we connect everything, we have this strategy to connect, for instance, all the medical devices connected to the internet. There is a tremendous value behind this concept. I have another great example. We signed this agreement with the governor of Friuli Venezia Giulia, northeast of Italy, and there is a nice project, a basic one, but very important. Friuli Venezia Giulia, it's spread in Trieste, but they have several villages around mountains. And there are, by coincidence, they have a lot of people that are under ictus. I don't know if it's ictus English, stroke. So there is an opportunity to support better citizens if you use technology when the people from that villages has this stroke. And we have invented what we call telepresence. It's high quality video connected to the network where you can see easily the person with high quality. So because of this, we are confident to drive healthier citizen because of this project. So we like clearly healthcare, and we are looking forward on what a human technopole will be.
Thank you. And I got the same question for Fabrizio.
Yes. Yes. When I started my activity in Texas, or not US, Texas, I was doing performance computing for Deep Blue. That was the machine playing chess against the world chess champion. I'm still playing chess myself. I'm a chess player, but we don't play chess anymore because this is not the most interesting topic, because now artificial intelligence is playing on different fields, on different turf. And the game field is different. And now for us, life sciences is the key topic. In fact, is the new moonshot, as our general manager, CEO used to call it. And actually is important because we believe that technology and artificial intelligence can play a major role there. Why is happening this? When I was doing my university thesis, I was doing an expert system for understanding if it was a cardiological infarct or a pain chest or other. This was 1989, a lot of years ago. It was Watson. Now it's called Watson Cardiologist, but at that time I was doing by hand with what was called regola di produzione, in English is inference rules. Now the machine with the artificial intelligence is starting to learn more things on their side, therefore, and can play a major role. They were not going to substitute the doctors, just a number for you. A machine can develop at this point of time, and the largest we have in Italy is 5-6 petaflops in terms of power. The human brain, one single human brain, I used to say my daughter human brain is 20. So no way, the doctor will have by far always a better CPU. But the doctor has less memory than a machine. That's the other point. Therefore, the machine can help reading paper for them and help on this. That's why for IBM is so central to play in life science. They used to say that IT stays to life science, as in the past century, maths stands for physics. That's basically what can be said in scientific word. Yeah.
Thank you, Fabrizio. And for Giovanni, I've got a different question, which is how, I will give you this, okay, whatever. The question is whether your company has any relationship with universities when you do this sort of researches, and which are these relationships, if there are any?
Yes, so I would say the answer to your first question is absolutely yes, because I really believe technology will accelerate progress in healthcare. What I try to describe in just 10 minutes is how much progress we've made in cancer care in the last 10 years. You have to realize that's probably an acceleration of 3 to 4-fold what used to be the life cycle of a medicine. We used to do phase 3 clinical trials for 5, 6, 7 years before any medicine could get to market. Today, it's happening at an extraordinary speed. So that needs to be enabled by technology. And some of it we can source internally, but a lot of it comes from working with the right academic institutions around the world. So we do have partnerships with researchers around the world. That's the way we actually advance our science. as a company. We work with several universities in Italy. Again, actually, the University of Naples is one of our core, as part of our core network of immuno-oncology, just because there is expertise there with a group that has advanced research in melanoma, and they became one of our core partner for some of our programs. But we do work for multiple universities around the world. I must say, where I would like to see more is in the fact that today we have really good scientists, really good clinicians in Italy. We do excellent research. We don't actually have a lot of business development activity in Italy, for example. Basic research does not easily find external funding in my area to become a startup, a biotech from which we can source innovation. That happens in some other European countries, not many. It does not yet happen in Italy to the extent that it should. So our partnerships tend to be more on what we call the clinical side of investigating the role of medicines with patients in the clinics, rather than in accessing new breakthrough technology as we typically do when we partner with biotech industries. And it's true that in my field, probably because it is very resource intensive, there aren't as many biotechs in Italy as definitely you can find in the US, but also as you can find in a couple of other countries in Europe. Because I think that requires a really good environment where cooperation between the different actors works really well versus individual skills and talent.
Thank you. I would like to have a second round, and then we leave the questions to people. But just a flash. So, Paolo, do you think that there might be the good conditions initially now to go back and do research in Italy?
The conditions for me, you mean? No,
Not personalized too much.
All right. So I think that those conditions are getting definitely better. Depends a lot on the field. But I think that overall the answer will be yes if some conditions are met. And I believe also that right now, I think there are examples like the human technopole that might provide the appropriate, place to go back for whoever wants to go back, or especially for people not necessarily Italian to come to the country. But as I said before, those efforts need to be multiplied. That's what happens in all countries. We cannot just be happy with one excellence point.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And to Agostino, Fabrizio, and Giovanni, I want to ask about young talent. What do you find in the Italian market when you are looking for new staff, new people, new resources? Do you find the right persons?
Yeah, the answer is yes or no. But again, let's connect the dot. The government is going to invest 10 billion euro in Industry 4.0. Manufacturing and agri-food, high school competencies and technology background. So if you ask me if I'm able to hire cybersecurity specialists in Italy, complex. But if you tell me if there is an opportunity, I believe yes, to reduce unemployment. And we have created this platform again, which is called Cisco Networking Academy, where we are training students in high school. We commit to 100,000 students, and for us it's a remarkable number. Just to tell you that we launched this Industry 4.0 training in high school, and Cisco versus Cisco, we are by far number of students, number one in the Cisco world. So we have more students than, with all the respect, than US. Mm-hmm. So which means that something is going on. So there is an appetite to be competent in this area.
So it means that the answer is we are training the next generation to do that.
Yeah.
So it sounds to
and we have to be extremely fast.
Fabrizio.
Yes, Yes, we are training the right generation, but there is an area of improvement, not from the Italian university system, but in general. We are missing in the industry depth. That is, we have this, last word, there was one speaking doctor doing advertisement. We were discussing with him what was the most important word for last year, and it was surface. We are becoming as thin as an iPad screen. Now, we need in the industry, yes, we need someone at that level with the T skill. We need that part, soft skill, as we were saying, but we need depth now in some areas. Because if you need to tackle what's the cardiology for using artificial intelligence for cardiology, you need to go depth. If you need to do medical imaging and using a machine for understanding an image, you need deep skills. That's something you cannot do at. And now this room is clear, is a key room. That's why I'm so proud and so happy to be here with you. You can provide depth, and now you can provide depth to the Italian system. Staying here, I mean, if you want to come back, yes, of course, they will be happy. Roberto will hire. We can hire. He hire. So fine. But you can stay here. You can stay here. You know. But we need to learn how to play as a team. Now, yesterday, another piece I saw at the museum. This is the Native Indian, Native American Museum. The Inca Trail. The Inca Trail is 6,000 kilometers long. So I was curious there, and I was observing the bridges. The bridges are done with the grass, just with the, what do you say, the grass things, but just by torquing them. You torque, and you put 10 of them, 20 of them, 30 of them, 100 of them. You can have a tier, a big track going above this. Now, doing teamwork, we can obtain fantastic things for the Italian business. That is research to business, so connecting. And we have to find a way, as you're already doing this fantastic organization like this, to connect you to the Italian system. Because in this way, you can provide to the system depth, like the university are providing, like it is providing. That's something that in the industry, in terms of skills now is lacking. I will not say IBM more. We are all at the same. But I believe it's time for depth. That's my view, and I believe this community can play a role there.
So thanks, Fabrizio. So for Fabrizio, no surface, no foliage. That's the. And for Giovanni, when you look for people, do you find the right persons?
So what I would say is, first of all, what I would say is we are hiring. And because I think seriously, in the last 10 years, it has been really, really difficult in Italy because our industry was never perceived to be an industry. It was always perceived to only be a cost.
Yes.
Because of what we do. And obviously we are a cost, and that's important, but we also are an industry. And so I actually think that we now are looking at Italy as a market in a different way, and we are hiring. Let me say that I don't have any problem in finding talent in Italy because, quite frankly, our medical department in Italy is the best in the world. And I'm not saying it because I'm Italian. I'm saying it because it's clearly a source of competitive advantage for us in the industry. We have very qualified physicians that work for Bristol Myers Squibb. It's a really good unit, and it's one of the best in the world. I don't think, however, and I believe I'm going to use some of the comments that were made before, my objective when I think about the company I work at, my objective is not to have more competent Italians in Italy. Of course, that's important. My objective is to have more talented, competent Italians around the world. And I don't actually define the success of Bristol Myers Squibb as defined only by the Italians that work at Bristol Myers Squibb. I actually really believe that you need a very international environment in order to be successful. I think the comment that was made about IIT is really critical because for a company to be successful, you need to be able to leverage very different experiences, very different backgrounds, very different training. So I think that our most successful organizations are the organizations in which there are people that come from 10 countries. And the success is not to create a micro environment of people that all have the same background. So I think I personally have enough talented Italians at Bristol Myers Squibb as I need, but I do want more of them working for Bristol Myers Squibb around the world. And in order to make Bristol Myers Squibb successful, I want to bring the most talented people from other countries in my Italian organization, because that's what advances the skills and the capabilities of the organization. So we do need to think about it as a very global environment in which Italy can play a very big role, not as an environment in which Italy on its own is more successful than we are today.
Thank you so much. Do we have time for some questions? We have the first question over there. Microphone is arriving.
Yeah. Hi, Riccardo Lattanzi, New York University. I have a question, I think, for all the panels, maybe more for the IBM and Cisco. So I've been in the US for 13 years. I think the most frustrating thing used to be going to the post office when I was going back. Now it's the internet. In order to do a long summer vacation, unfortunately, I need to bring work with me. And internet is really frustrating if you want to work. So I heard one of you was mentioning investments on the ultra-wideband. I was wondering where we stand. And actually also, since that will come, how do you do it now? So maybe I can copy the model next summer.
So, ultra broadband, if you take the investments the government and public entities are doing right now, it's 12 billion euros, which is massive investment. Let's divide it, if I remember correctly, 6 billion from government and 6 billion roughly from telco operators in the country. The way we built the plan has been considered at European level remarkable because it's addressing digital divide. The focus we have today is best in Europe, in the new Europe after Brexit, let's say. And I believe it's an opportunity. Now, the point is, how long does it take to be the best, not just compared to the European countries, but globally? And I believe there is an opportunity. Now, the concept of timing, it's important. This is the one part. On the other, we are extremely well positioned in the 5G and the 4G mobile connection. You know it. We have 80 million SIM available in Italy, in a country of 60 million citizens. So we love mobile. We love mobile, but I mean, technologically speaking, it's an extraordinary asset because you can drive technology through mobility. So it's cool.
And on post office, since you mentioned, we are making great progress, and we are doing. And since I was mentioning iPad before, we are doing a fantastic project on aging population with iPad. It's incredible. So your grandfather will have an iPad for. And the postman will have an iPad also for him. This is interesting. Now, this let me say something. You mentioned technology is a fantastic thing. We just have to use it properly, maintaining our depth or our skills, not having it substituting us on task that we should do ourselves. Good common. This is something important. Artificial intelligence. There is a fantastic article on advanced computing machinery. Common sense reasoning, we are 20 years behind. No way. I mean, it's almost impossible for a machine to do common sense reasoning. Common sense reasoning should be done by you in this room. While the machine can do a lot of fantastic things on other things. But for doing common sense reasoning, you need depth.
Thank you. And another question?
Hi, my name is Simone Mori. I'm a physician scientist at the Scripps Research Institute. I have a question for Dr. Caforio, more toward the biomedical side. So immuno-oncology is definitely a new hope for patients, but nowadays there's still some uncertainty from which compound is better in certain fields, like in center tumors. So I wanted to know if in oncology it would make sense for you, for your company, and for patients to have a comparison, a trial between drugs, between anti-PD-1 or anti-immuno-oncology drugs, And also, I guess, on the long term, will immuno-oncology change, being the fact that diagnostic is improving a lot, and it seems to be able to detect cancer very early in stage with ultra-deep sequencing of blood?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Let me start from the second part, which is easier. I think that the least effective approach you can have is to treat the disease when it's very, very advanced. Okay, it's clearly the most difficult setting is where the cost effectiveness of any therapy is more challenging. So it is clear that the number one strategy in order to actually one day make a really big difference in the treatment of cancer is early detection. I would argue prevention, but I think that's a bit of a different story. Early detection is clearly important. And then second is to be able to profile. We used to think just the cancer of a patient, we probably need to understand the patient as well, meaning the immune system and what's called the microenvironment around the tumor, in order to make sure that every patient receives the best product, the best combination of products. I think that's another example of how you need a multidisciplinary approach to making progress in cancer, because there is no pharmaceutical company, and I would argue no academic institution that on their own can do that. So that's why it really needs somebody that works on big data. It needs somebody with access to epidemiology data. It needs the diagnostic industry. It needs everybody from a researcher to a treating physician. So that's really what you need to do. And that's why my comment before was to move from the brilliant expertise of individual researchers to an environment that enables the right networks of people working together, which is really where I think many institutions in Europe and Italy included can really focus and improve. Now, with respect to comparison of different trials, of different products and different trials, I think that's a really good point. I think it becomes very technical for this audience. What I would say is that there again, I think, we're going to have to get better than just doing trials every time we want an answer. We're going to have somebody that helps us predict answers based on very big data sources, because otherwise we're not going to be spending our time on the most meaningful things.
I think Paolo want to add something.
I'd like to comment. I think this 100% agree, and I think that question was really relevant. I'd like just to point out what happened. You know better than anybody by what happened in the past 20, 30 years, where we all been concentrating on the cure of disease, which of course is critical when you have the disease. But I think there a large effort that needs to be done, and I think that many places are starting to do that, is prevention, and put way more weight on prevention. I think Italy could actually become a leader in that direction, and that means really personalized medicine, where we understand that not the same cure can be really applied to every single person. Life expectancy is increased dramatically, but the last 10, 15 years of life are actually pretty bad for most people. So the question is not just to increase the length of life, but the aging, the quality of aging has to increase. And that can be done by personalized medicine, not in the old patient, not in the old fella, but since youth. And we're talking about, again, back to the question about quality of nutrition and quality of lifestyle and well-being.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Roberto, want to say something?
Yeah, I just have a comment and a general question. I mean, dealing with the SIM cards in Italy, for instance, it's true that we have a big number of telephones per capita, but it's also true that we are famous for exchanging a very low number of kilobytes per capita. So we essentially miss technology awareness. Why do we buy $1 million telephone when we can use just as a camera or a normal telephone? And if I go to medicine, I think we are facing a similar situation. The success of the modern medicine depends on the fact that quantum mechanics is heavily entering into everything. Quantum chemistry, molecular drug design, genomics itself, it's quantum mechanics. Proteomics nowadays, it's quantum crystallography, basically. So don't you think it's time that companies start pushing to change the educational system at very large level? I mean, quantum mechanics and quantum chemistry should be taught in the medical schools. At high school level, we should teach digital information and data science, at least the basic information, because this is the language of the future. It's no longer, even not English is the language of the future. I mean, our kids should learn this kind of languages. But if you don't push for this, I'm sure that the educational model will never change itself for a simple principle, second concept, entropy. Essentially, we just keep the situation as is. This really depends on you. If you don't ask for something, the system will not change itself.
I'm not sure. Is it a question for any, or is it a statement?
I was provoking.
Yeah,
I will take the 5G and the usage of mobile phone in Italy. You are right. So we are consumers. So in Italy, we are very social. And that's it. So we love Facebook. We are connected, 28 million users of Facebook. If you take above 55 years old, we are a benchmark in the world. It's not enough. So now we have to bring these competencies in the business world in a different usage, and we need to develop services like what the government is doing and what the enterprises are doing to develop services that are used in a mobile kind of usage. So it's not enough to be a great Facebook user. We need to change this statistic. The other point, if you look at the last 2 years, the percentage growth of data traffic in Italy is growing faster than others. Maybe it's a political thing. I'm not an expert there, but it's a signal that something is happening, but it's still a problem. Thank you.
I mean, but I think it's clear that education must evolve. That's maybe one of the areas in which there is a need for bigger partnership between the industry and institutions when you think long term about what skills you want to develop. That's very clear.
I would have loved to go ahead, but we don't have time. Our time is over. Thank you so much for having been with us, and thank you again.
Okay.